ships, accounting for about 30%. Now, 30% is too much, we think. This is why we have been exploring ways of doing without the carbon economy in Iceland altogether. And we can do this by focusing more on the resources we have, because we think that we have only utilized around 15 to 20% of the renewable energy potential we have in Iceland today. And then I'm not including wind and solar, which you have in great abundance in your part of the world, but only those resources I talked about earlier. And one way that we think will make it possible for us to reach that goal of eliminating the carbon-based economy altogether is to develop a hydrogen economy in Iceland. And for that purpose, we have set up a roadmap. And we think we can possibly achieve our goal and establish a hydrogen economy in Iceland in a span of maybe 50 years, which is, of course, optimistic. And obviously, we will not accomplish that goal on our own. We have to do that in close cooperation with other countries, not least the United States, which is, of course, a pioneer in basic research and science when it comes to hydrogen use.
But I thought that you were ahead of the United States in hydrogen, because I remember reading that you were actually operating hydrogen-powered buses in Iceland. And if you are actually running hydrogen-powered buses, then you are ahead of the United States.
Well, what we did was to offer Iceland as a platform for demonstration and research in certain areas of hydrogen use, mainly hydrogen infrastructure. We launched our national plan, I think, in 2004, 2005. And during the first phase, yes, we tried 3 hydrogen buses on the streets of Reykjavik, and we experimented with the integration of a hydrogen fuel station in an urban setting, which had not been done before. This was a project that we wound up within 2 years. It was a successful demonstration, but now we are no longer running the buses. We have expanded into a different area, and we are now testing a fleet of hydrogen cars. I think we have about 10 hydrogen cars on the streets of Reykjavik at the moment. If you were to visit, you would be able to rent a hydrogen Toyota from Hertz, to give you an example. We expect to expand the fleet to some 40 cars within the next 2 years. And we are also experimenting with applications of hydrogen for our fishing fleet, mainly auxiliary uses like lighting system for our whale watching boats, because if you're a whale watcher, you need to run a quiet boat. You need to turn off the engine, and that's where a fuel cell, a hydrogen cell, comes in very handy. So these are some examples of projects that are ongoing, but there are problems with hydrogen also. Number one, people have misconceptions about it. You know, they think hydrogen is highly combustible, that you can have something like the Hindenburg accident if hydrogen cars clash in the street, which is not true. It's a fairly safe fuel to work with. Secondly, it is not cost effective as yet. The hydrogen cars come at around $100,000 a pop. And then the greatest problem of all is probably storage, because you need to compress hydrogen substantially in order to use it for civilian purposes of that kind. And hydrogen It's a very peculiar substance. It seeps even through steel and iron. So traditional containers and tanks will not do if you are to store hydrogen. So this is a problem we are still working on. But I wouldn't say that we are ahead of the United States when it comes to basic research. But we are cooperating closely with both the United States and the European Union in demonstrating that this is a viable technology that you can use. And I think we have been able to demonstrate so far that hydrogen has a viable future.
There are two types of countries in the world, the developed and the developing. The developed countries are consuming and over-consuming, and because they are over-consuming energy, therefore they want to find cheaper sources of renewable energy. But you have developing countries in the world also who are terribly energy deficient. What is the lesson that can be learned from Iceland by developing countries about sources of energy if you are energy deficient and if you do not have enough money to import oil perpetually from the oil-producing countries?
Well, in some ways, our situation is parallel to the very countries you are describing, because fossil fuels are not to be found in our country, not yet at any rate. Also, our country used to be one of the poorest countries in Europe, so in effect a developing country right up to the end of the Second World War. Now, over a span of some 50 years, we were able to build an economy that was highly prosperous and technology-driven, and we did well. In the year 2007, we came out on top of the Human Development Index of the United Nations. We came out on top of many such indexes as regards the facility of doing business and so on. But the reason we got there was not that we were smarter than other people. No, we got there because we made some right choices, and we were able to take and apply technologies that had been developed by others, including, of course, the United States, to the to the development of our natural resources in fisheries and in the area of energy. So we are not a case apart. This is something that can be replicated elsewhere. I think we have shown that developing countries can take the same path and develop their natural resources in a sustainable way, whether it's fisheries or energy resources. Grant you, though, there are not all that many countries, although I think there are maybe around 70 or 80 that do have geothermal resources. But most countries in the world do have clean energy resources, renewable resources, including wind, solar, and biomass. And there is a way for the developing country also to choose this path. Of course, they need our support. They need the support of the international community, and they need the support of countries that have developed these technologies. And we think we can make a useful contribution to these countries, and that is why we are running in Iceland 2 United Nations departments. One is the geothermal program of the United Nations University, and the other is the fisheries department of that same university. We have people from all over the world attend these programs. They go back and they take the knowledge with them. We need to do more of that, obviously, but the problem for the developing countries today is not that they don't have access to the technology. They lack the financial means and the wherewithal to actually to implement those programs. So, Kamal, I think there is a lesson in what we have accomplished for everybody, also for the developing world.